January 27th, 1900, Volume 3, The Order of the Virtues in the Soul. I continue to be almost without my sweet Jesus. My life is leaving me because of the pain. I feel such tedium, boredom, tiredness of life. I kept saying in my interior, "Oh, how my exile has been prolonged! Oh, what happiness would be mine if I could loosen the bonds of this body, so that my soul might take wing freely toward my highest good." A thought said to me, "And what if you go to hell?" And I, so as not to call the devil to fight me, immediately snapped out of it by saying, "Well then, even from hell I will send my sighs to my sweet Jesus. Even from there do I want to love him." While I was amid these and other thoughts, the story would be too long if I wanted to repeat them all. Lovable Jesus made himself seen for just a little, but with a serious aspect, and he told me, "Your time has not yet come." Then, with an intellectual light, he made me comprehend that everything must be orderly in the soul. The soul possesses many little apartments in which each virtue takes its place, even though it can be said that one single virtue contains all others within itself, and that the soul, by possessing only one of them, comes to be endowed with all the other virtues. However, in spite of this, they are all distinct among themselves, so much so that each of them has its own place in the soul. And here is how all virtues have their origin in the mystery of the sacrosanct Trinity. While it is one, there are three distinct persons, and while they are three, they are one. I also understood that these apartments in the soul are either full of virtue or of the vice opposite to that virtue, and if there is neither virtue nor vice, they remain empty. It seemed to me that they are like a house which contains many rooms, all empty. Or some rooms are full of snakes, some of mud, some are full of pieces of furniture full of dust, and some are dark. Ah, Lord, you alone can put my poor soul in order. January 27th, 1901, Volume 4. The establishment of faith is in the establishment of charity. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus made himself seen for a little while, and I don't know why. He said to me, "My daughter, the whole establishment of the Catholic faith is in the establishment of charity, which unites the hearts and makes them live in me." Then, throwing himself into my arms, he wanted me to refresh him. After I did as much as I could, he gave me tit for tat, and he disappeared. January 27th, 1909, Volume 8, Luisa of the Passion of the Tabernacle. Continuing in my usual state, I said to myself, "What a useless life mine is! What good do I do? Everything is over. There is no more sharing in thorns, crosses, nails. It seems that everything is exhausted. I do feel suffering to the point that I cannot move. It is a general rheumatism of pain, but it is something all natural. I am only left with the continuous thought of the Passion, and the union of my will with that of Jesus, offering what he suffered, and all of myself as he wants, for whomever he wants. But apart from this, there is nothing but squalid misery. So what is the purpose of my life?" While I was thinking of this, blessed Jesus came, just a flash, and told me, "My daughter, do you know who you are? Luisa of the Passion of the Tabernacle. When I share my pains with you, you are still of Calvary. When I don't, you are of the Tabernacle. See how true this is? In the tabernacle I show nothing on the outside, neither crosses nor thorns, yet my immolation is the same as on Calvary. The prayers are the same. The offering of my life still continues. My will has not changed in anything. I burn with the thirst for the salvation of souls. I can say that the things of my sacramental life, united with those of my mortal life, are always at one point. They have decreased in nothing. However, everything is interior. So if your will is the same as when I used to share my pains with you, if your offerings are similar, if your interior is united with me, with my will, am I not right in saying that you are Luisa of the Passion of the Tabernacle? With this difference alone, that when I share my pains with you, you take part in my mortal life, and I spare the world the gravest scourges. When I do not share them with you, I scourge the world, and you take part in my sacramental life. But the life is always one. January 27th, 1912, Volume 10. The Soul Wants Hiddenness. This morning Jesus showed me a soul who was crying, but it seemed rather to be a crying of love. Jesus clasped her, and it seemed that inside his heart there was a cross, which, pressing against her heart, made her feel abandonments, coldness, agonies, distractions, oppressions. And the soul wriggled about, and a few times she escaped from the arms of Jesus to put herself at his feet. Jesus wanted that, in her state, she would hold on, remaining in his arms, telling her, "If you are able to hold on in this state, remaining in my arms without wavering, this cross will be your sanctification. Otherwise you will always stay at the same point." On seeing this, I said, "Jesus, what do these people want from me? It seems to me that they want to take holy freedom away from me and enter into the secrets that exist between me and you." And Jesus, "My daughter, if I allowed them to hear something of what you say to me, it was because of their great faith. And if I did not do it, I would feel as if I were defrauding them. But let others try, and you will see that I would not even let you peep." And I fear, O Jesus, that even at this moment we are not alone. And if you allow things to get out, where will my hiddenness in you be any more? Listen, O Jesus, I'm telling you this nice and clear. I don't want my nonsense to get out. You alone must know it, because you alone know me. How mad and bad I am, for I even reach the point of doing impertinences with you and of becoming fussy as if I were a little girl. Who would ever reach this point? No one. Only my madness, my pride, my great wickedness. And since I see that you love me more, in order to have more love from you, I continue with my nonsense, caring about nothing but to be your amusement. What do others know about this, O dear Jesus? My daughter, do not worry. I told you that I too don't want this habitually, at most once in 100 times. And almost to distract me, he added, "Tell me, what do you want to say to those who are in heaven?" And I, "By myself I can say nothing to no one. Only to you can I say everything. Through you, you will tell them that I regard and greet everyone. The sweet Mamma, the saints and the angels my brothers, and the virgins my sisters. and you will tell them to remember the poor exiled one. January 27th, 1918, Volume 12. Things Will Rage More. Days are most bitter. Sweet Jesus almost does not come, or he flashes by. And in that flash he makes himself seen while he dries his tears, and then runs away without telling the reason. Finally, after many hardships, he told me, "My daughter, after so long you have been dealing with me, you still have not learned to know my ways and the reason for my absence. Yet I told you many times. How easily you forget my words. Things will rage more, that is all." Then, finding myself outside of myself, I saw some saying that 2 or 3 nations had to be rendered powerless to defend themselves. How many miseries, how many ruins, because other nations will constrain them so much to the extent of laying hands on them in such a way as to render them powerless. January 27th, 1919, Volume 12. The 3 Mortal Wounds of the Heart of Jesus. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus, in coming, showed me his adorable heart, all full of wounds, from which rivers of blood gushed. All sorrowful, he told me, "My daughter, among the many wounds that my heart contains, there are 3 wounds which give me mortal pains and such bitterness of sorrow as to surpass all the other wounds together. These are the pains of my loving souls. When I see a soul of mine, all mine, suffering because of me, tortured, crushed, ready to suffer for me even the most painful death, I feel her pains as if they were mine, and maybe even more. Ah, love can open the deepest gashes to the extent of making one feel no other pains. My dear mamma enters first into this first wound. Oh, how her heart, pierced because of my pains, overflowed into mine, and felt vividly all of its piercings. In seeing her dying without dying because of my death, I felt the torment, the cruelness of her martyrdom in my heart, and I felt the pains of my death which the heart of my dear mamma felt, and my heart died together with hers. Therefore, all my pains, united with the pains of my mamma, surpassed everything. It was right that my celestial mamma had the first place in my heart, both in sorrow and in love, because each pain suffered for love of me, opened seas of graces and of love, which poured into her pierced heart. All the souls who suffer because of me, and only out of love, enter into this wound. You yourself enter into it, and even if all offended me and nobody loved me, I would find in you the love which can compensate me for all. Therefore, when creatures drive me away and force me to run away from them, I very quickly come to take refuge in you, as though in my hiding place, and finding my own love, not their own, and a love suffering only for me, I say, I do not regret having created heaven and earth, and having suffered so much. A soul who loves me and who suffers for me is all my contentment, my happiness, my reward for everything I have done. And as though putting all the rest aside, I delight and play with her. However, while this wound of my heart is the most painful, such as to surpass everything, it contains 2 effects at the same time. It gives me intense pain and highest joy, unspeakable bitterness and indescribable sweetness, painful death and glorious life. These are the excesses of my love, inconceivable to created mind. In fact, how many contentments did my heart not find in the sorrows of my pierced mamma? The second mortal wound of my heart is ingratitude. With ingratitude the creature closes my heart. Even more, she herself turns the key into double locks. My heart swells, wanting to pour out graces and love, but it cannot, because the creature has closed it and has sealed it with her ingratitude. And I become delirious. I agonize without hope that this wound of mine may be healed, because ingratitude keeps embittering it more and more, giving me mortal pain. The third one is obstinacy. What a mortal wound for my heart! Obstinacy is the destruction of all the goods I have done for the creature. It is the signature that the creature puts on her declaration that she no longer recognizes me, that she no longer belongs to me. It is the key of hell into which the creature hurls herself. My heart feels this tearing. It is torn to pieces, and I feel one of these pieces being taken away from me. What a mortal wound obstinacy is. My daughter, enter my heart and take part in these wounds of mine. Compassionate my tormented heart. Let us suffer together and let us pray. I entered his heart. How painful but beautiful it was to suffer and pray with Jesus. January 27th, 1925, Volume 17. Just as things created by God do not go out of him because the divine will becomes their nourishment and preservation, the same happens for the soul who lives in the divine will. While I was fusing myself in the holy divine will, I thought to myself, before, when I used to fuse myself in the holy supreme volition, Jesus was with me, and I entered into it together with him. Therefore entering was a reality. But now I don't see him, so I don't know whether I am entering the eternal volition or not. In forming the act of entering the divine will, I feel rather like one who is reciting a little lesson, learned by heart, or that those words of entrance are just a way of saying. Now, as I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus moved in my interior, and, taking my hand in his own, pushed me up high and told me, "My daughter, you must know that whether you see me or not, every time you fuse yourself in my divine will, from within your interior, I take your hand and push you high, and from heaven I give you my other hand, to take your other hand and pull you up into our midst, in our interminable will. Therefore you are between my hands, in my arms. You must know that all the acts done in our will enter into the prime act when we created all beings, and the acts of the creature in kissing ours, because one is the will which gives life to these acts, diffuse in all created things, just as our will is diffused everywhere. They become return of love, continuous adoration and glory for all that we have delivered in creation. Only that which is done in our will begins, almost together with us, to give us return of perennial love, adoration in a divine manner, glory that never ends. And since the love we feel for all the things we created is so great that we did not allow them to go out of our will, they all remained with us, just as we created them, and our will became the preservation and nourishment of the whole creation. This is why all things remain always new, fresh, and beautiful, nor does the substance of any of them increase or decrease, since they were created all perfect by us, and therefore not subject to any kind of alteration, because they all conserve their origin as they let themselves be nourished and preserved by our will, and remain around us to sing our glory. But miserably the creature of reason does not do so, when by sin she separates from our will. Now the work of the creature in our will enters into our works, and our will becomes nourishment, preservation, and act of the very act of the creature. These acts done in our will by the creature place themselves around us, and transfused in all created things, sing our perpetual glory. How different is our work and the love with which we operate from that of the creature. In us, our love for the work we do is so great that we do not allow it to go outside of ourselves, that it may lose nothing of the beauty with which it was made. On the other hand, if the creature of reason does a good work, or even one virtuous act, she is unable to keep it with herself. Rather, many times she doesn't know what happened to her work, whether it got dirty or whether they reduced it to a rag, sign of her little love for her own works. And since the creature, because of sin, went out from her foundation, that is, the prime divine will from which she took origin, she lost true love toward God, toward herself, and toward her works. I wanted man to be in my will by his own will, not by force, because I loved him more than all other created things. And I wanted him to be like a king in the midst of my works. But man, ungrateful, wanted to go out from his origin. Therefore he was transformed and lost his freshness and beauty, and was subject to alterations and continuous changes. And as much as I can call him to return into his origin, he plays deaf, pretending not to hear me. But my love is such that I keep waiting for him, and I continue to call him. January 27th, 1928, Volume 23. How the kingdom of the divine Fiat is enclosed in the redemption. How God, in operating, chooses one in whom to deposit his work. I was continuing my round in the supreme volition, and as I arrived at the acts that my beloved Jesus did in redemption, I tried to follow, step by step, everything he had done with so much love and sorrow. And I thought to myself, another time Jesus told me that he loved me so much that he made me the owner of his works, of his words, of his heart, of his steps, of his pains. There was no act he had done that he did not give me as gift, and only Jesus could and wanted to do this, because he loved as God, while creatures, if they give external goods, the riches of the earth, but none of them her own life. This means that that's a love of creature, a finite love. So I thought to myself, if this is so, my lovable Jesus should call me wherever he is about to do his acts, so as to deliver them to me. And he, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, you must know that in the redemption was enclosed the kingdom of my divine will, and there was no act that I did that did not enclose both one and the other, with this difference alone, that what pertained to the redemption I manifested outside, I made known, and I gave as gift, because it was to serve as preparation for the kingdom of my divine will, while what pertained to the kingdom of my fiat I withheld within myself, as though suspended in my divine will itself. Now you must know that when our divinity decides to issue an act outside of itself, to do a work, a good, first we choose the creature in whom to deposit our work, because we do not want that what we do remain in the empty space and without effect, and that no creature should be the depository of our goods. Therefore we call at least one of them, so that, if the other creatures, ungrateful, do not want to receive our goods, our works are deposited in this one at least. And when we are sure of this, Then do we operate. So, in the redemption, the depository of all my acts was my inseparable Mamma. It can be said that, as I was about to breathe, to cry, to pray, to suffer, and everything else I did, first I called her to receive my breaths, my tears, my suffering, and so forth, in order to deposit them in her, and then I breathed, cried, and prayed. It would be unbearable to me, and a sorrow that would surpass any other sorrow, if I did not have my Mamma in whom I could deposit my acts. Now, since all the acts of the kingdom of my divine will are enclosed in those of redemption, even from that time I called you, and as I deposited in the sovereign Queen of Heaven everything that regarded the kingdom of redemption, so did I deposit in you what regarded the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. This is why I want you to follow me step by step, and if, a little child, I cry, I want you near me in order to give you the gift of my tears, with which I impetrated for you the great gift of my divine kingdom. If I speak, I want you near me to give you the gift of the word of my will. If I walk, to give you the gift of its steps. If I work, to endow you with its works. If I pray, to give you the gift of my prayer in order to impetrate its kingdom for the human family. If I make miracles, to give you the gift of the great miracle of my will. And so, if I give sight to the blind, I remove from you the blindness of your human will to give you the sight of my will. If I give hearing to the deaf, I give you the gift of acquiring the hearing of my will. If I give speech to the mute, I loosen you from your muteness in my will. If I straighten up the lame, I straighten you up in my will. If I calm the storm with my empire, I command the storm of your human will to no longer dare to agitate the Pacific Sea of mine. In sum, there is nothing I do and suffer that I do not give you as gift, in order to deposit in you the kingdom of my will, so loved by me and formed within myself. It would have been for me the greatest of my sorrows, while forming with so much love the kingdom of my divine will within me, in my humanity, the primary purpose for my coming upon earth, and forming this kingdom of mine in order to restore it in creatures, if I were not to be sure, as I was for the redemption, that at least one creature would receive the restoration of the kingdom of the divine Fiat. And so I looked at the centuries as one single point, and I found you, the chosen one, and even from that time I directed and deposited my acts in you in order to dispose my kingdom. And just as for the kingdom of redemption I spared nothing, neither toils, nor pains, nor prayers, nor graces, and not even death, so as to be able to give to all sufficient and abundant graces and means, so that all might be saved and sanctified, even though I placed and secured everything in the celestial Queen. The same for the kingdom of my will. Even though I secure everything in you, I am giving so much, I am spared nothing, neither teachings, nor light, nor graces, nor attractions, nor promises, in such a way that, if all want to receive the great good of my will to let it reign within themselves, all will find superabundant means and helps in order to live a good so great. Therefore, your coming on earth in time was awaited by me with such love, with such yearning, that you cannot even imagine, because I wanted to deposit the many suspended acts done by my humanity in order to form the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. If you knew what a suspended act done by your Jesus means, oh, how you would hasten to receive all the deposit of my acts, so as to give life to these suspended acts, because they contain as many divine lives, and you would hasten to make them known to the other creatures. End of January 27th. Fiat.